Hi, first graders. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. So yesterday we started doing a little bit of research. I was researching about worms. I'm curious to learn more about the worms that I have out in my compost bins outside. And today we are going to take a look at some more books to see if we can find the answers to some of our unanswered questions. So here's our learning target for the day. By the end of today, I will be able to choose more books to research the answers to my questions. So yesterday, let me bring up my my research questions and what we've got so far in our notes. Hold on a second. Okay. So here, and let me move this to the side because we're going to be researching today. All right, so over here on the left, here are my research questions. So how do earthworms move? What do earthworms like to eat? Do they have eyes? How do they breathe? How are earthworms good for soil? So we found out a little bit of information on almost all of my questions. I still haven't figured out if they have eyes yet. And that tells me I'm going to need to do a little bit more research and look in some more books to help me find those answers. So here I am over here on Myon. If you aren't able to get books from the library, although you guys know the public library is open now for checkout. They're doing curbside checkout. So I hope that if you have a library card, maybe you get books from the checkout. I think you order them online. So if your parents have questions about that, they can email me and I'll help them make sure that you can get some books. And you can also use our online books at Myon. So when you go into Myon, if you go to the search button, so here's our search button, and then you see the search bar right here. It usually has, most places that have a search bar, they have this magnifying glass, and that's a hint that that's where you type your search word. So I'm just going to type worm and see how many books Myon has about worms. So I would see there's 11 books about worms. So let's look down. Now here is the thing. When you're researching in the library or if you're researching on Myon, some of these books are going to be good nonfiction books that'll teach me about my topic and answer my questions. Some of these books might not. So let's take a look through some of these books. This one says, when Thomas Edison fed someone worms. That seems like someone was eating worms. Is that going to answer my research questions? I don't think so. Hocus Pocus Hotel. Do you think that's going to teach me about worms? I don't think so. I don't know why. Oh, it says the wizard and the wormhole. So that's not even a worm. It's a wormhole. Like he goes through this portal. Willie the Worm. That kind of looks like a fiction book about a worm. Grubs, Bugs, and Worms. That looks like nonfiction. It seems like more than just worms. It seems like it's about a lot of different types of bugs. So I might learn a little bit about worms from that book, but it might not be all about worms. Let's see what other options. There's Willie the Worm in Spanish. Worms. This looks like a nonfiction book. Let's take a look in this book, Worms, and see what we can learn. Okay.
Worms by Sean Smith. Hiding underground. Let's meet a creature it's good to have around. The best way to find one is to dig in the ground. It's long, thin, and slimy. What is it, do you think? That's right, it's a worm, and most of them are pink. Worms don't have eyes or fingers or many other parts. But inside a worm's body, it has 5 beating hearts.
I think I see one of our answers on this page. Worms don't have eyes or fingers or many other parts. So this says worms don't have eyes. So I think that answers question number 3. Do they have eyes? Seems like no, they don't. But inside a worm's body has 5 beating hearts. Now, I didn't ask a question about the hearts, but that's a really interesting thing to know. Did you guys know that a worm has 5 different hearts? That's pretty crazy to me. So down below my questions, maybe I'll make a section for just like cool facts I learned. I'll say worms have 5 hearts. That's pretty cool. I never knew that. So I want to keep track of that in my notes too, even if it isn't one of my questions. All right, let's see what else we can learn from this book.
A worm does have a mouth, but it's difficult to see. This worm's opened its mouth to eat a leaf from a tree.
So that one's eating a leaf.
Leaf.
I think that we learned So we learned what they like to eat, dead leaves and plants. And so there's a leaf, we learned that already. Okay, so I'm learning that sometimes we're gonna see the same information repeated across multiple books. So we learn about they like to eat leaves from the other book, and here we see it again.
Worm breath. Worms don't breathe through a mouth or even through a nose. Worms breathe through their skin. That's where the air goes.
Oh, this confirms what we learned in the other book, that worms breathe through their skin. So we learned that before, and now we see that confirmed in a second book.
To keep on breathing, worms need to stay wet. So a worm is a good choice if you want a slimy pet.
Oh, we learned this too, right? That they have to be a little wet to breathe.
Hairy movers. Look at a worm's body closely, and small hairs can be found. These help the worm to move as it wriggles all around. Hair.
Oh, we learned this too. So we learned how do earthworms move. We said the hairs help them hold on, but this book is also makes it seem like the hairs help them move too. So I'll write that down too. So hairs help them move. Okay.
Baby worms. Any two worms can make babies, and that's really quite nice. Babies hatch out of cocoons, which look like small grains of rice.
They do look like grains of rice. Look at those tiny worm egg or worm cocoons, I guess.
Squishy brown piles. If you see a brown pile, do you know what you found? It comes out of a worm's bottom, but it's good for the ground.
This kind of reminds me of the part about good for the soil. So their waste is good for the soil and plants, and we see that confirmed here.
Spot the worm. Somewhere on this page, there's a small worm to find. Look at all the hiding spots. Check in front and behind.
Can you add the worm on the page? There it is. All right, so that book taught us a little bit about worms. We learned that they don't have eyes. Let's take a look in that other worm book that we saw. And because when you're doing research, you want to look in lots of different places. So let's see. Let's read the Grubs, Bugs, and Worms book. Now, I'm guessing that not every page will be about worms here, so we're going to have to look for the page about worms. So I'm going to skip ahead.
Dishing the dirt.
No worms here.
Wiggly wonders.
Oh, here we go.
Earthworms wiggle through the dirt in many parts of the world. These creatures are decomposers. They eat bits of dead plants and animals. Their waste is full of nutrients that fertilize the soil. Many earthworms feed above ground at night. They burrow below ground during the day. Dig in. How do earthworms burrow without claws or feet? Their bodies have rows of tiny hair-like bristles. The bristles push earthworms forward through the dirt. Decomposer, a living thing that turns dead things into food for others. Fertilize, to make soil rich and healthy. Burrow, to dig a tunnel or hole in the ground. Bristle, short, stiff hair.
Wow, this book taught us in just one page. This book taught us a lot of extra details. So I learned, let's see, that they're decomposers, and that means they eat bits of dead plants and animals. So let me write that about what they like to eat. So what do earthworms like to eat? I'll say, well, we already got dead leaves and plants. And it looks like they also eat dead animals. So I'll write that too, dead animals. And I'll write, they are decomposers. That's an important thing to know. It looks like they only like to eat. mostly dead things. And then remember how we were learning about how they're good for the soil? Let's look down here. So this says their waste is full of nutrients that fertilize the soil. So we learned that their waste is good for the soil and plants. Now we know why. If their waste has nutrients in it and that word fertilize, here's our little mini glossary down here, to make the soil rich and healthy. So the waste has nutrient that fertilizes. Well, this is seeming pretty similar to how the author wrote it. The waste has nutrients and is like a fertilizer for soil. All right, good to know. And we also learned about how they move. It says they have rows of tiny hair-like bristles. So it seems like it's not exactly like hair, but more like bristles. So let me see. Hairs help them move. And I'll say hairs or bristles help them move. So we have taken a couple different books here that have helped us learn more about our questions. And now we have a little bit of answers to each of our questions. Tomorrow, we're going to go beyond books and look at some other research tools in our online databases to find out even more. I'll see you then.